time for any questions. Who would like to ask a question? Wait, because I'm going to give you the microphone.
Hi, everyone. This is a question to the panel, but also to everyone in the room. I started accounting 50 odd years ago, so I realize I'm a dinosaur. But at that time, chartered accountancy was the MBA of its day. It was the path to management. And it was a real, honest to goodness path, but not just to FD, but also to MD. And so when I came to the United States, I was very surprised that CPAs didn't seem to have that same path. In fact, I think it's accepted now that you don't have to be a CPA to be a CFO. There are different skills that are looked for. So, but I still see among our members, people thriving. So what is it about the chartered accountancy training that enables CAs to thrive in the way that CPAs don't seem to do as well? Or am I just totally off the wall?
Thank you, Ian, for the question. So I would say some of what I referenced with one of my earliest mentors talking about creating a busy life for yourself. I think that the qualification does require discipline and study. At the same time, you are holding down a job and excelling in that. Most people still go into large accountancy and consulting firms as they're going through that practice. A lot is asked of you. You will be on a larger client. You will be doing a lot of work hours. You will be asked to also pass your exams. I think that discipline and creating that busy life, when you pass that exam, you've got the ability to do more. I can't speak for the CPA qualification, but certainly I know that so much is required to get there. I think it does, and it's held in high regard and held in high esteem. So you have self-starters applying, you have people that do want to then utilise it to move on. Maybe there's a natural inclination there to be very driven and move forward at perhaps a faster pace.
We're on dangerous ground. In the US, we can't compete potentially. So I'll just say, I'll just reflect on my journey, right? So for the 4 years that we had to study in order to be able to write the board exam, I did 4 years of accounting, 3 years of management accounting, 3 years of auditing, tax for probably 3 or 4 years. I mean, the foundation was massive, right? I mean, honestly, so you could walk into articles, which I did in the smaller companies, and they say, can you help me on my tax return? And you could do that. In the US, it's a different story. And I think part of it is scale. Like, people specialize very, very significantly here because of scale. In the smaller markets, honestly, you had to do almost everything and you had to figure it out, right? Just with that foundation. And I know that in the US, in order to sit for the CPA, that's another thing I had to learn, sit not right, but sit for the CPA, you needed far fewer sort of accounting credits or auditing credits, etc. So the foundation is just much broader, I think, for the CPA. So whether it's good or bad, I feel like at the end of the day, I think the character of the person will define where they end up in life one day. But what I appreciate about the foundation is it taught you how businesses are run. How does cash flow? How does supply chain work? And that was part of the training as well, obviously in the articles, but the foundation set by the universities in whichever country you studied in, for me, South Africa, was amazing because it was hard. Like I said, I'm not a natural born accountant, so it was a hard slog, but it taught, so that foundation I think is different. I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions?
Go to Barbara.
Not a question as much as just trying to respond to the original question posed. The difference between chartered accountants and CPA are so vast that trying to respond to it succinctly wouldn't do it justice. So, in the interest of being brief, I do serve as the dean of the graduate school here at Fordham. My great colleague here, Kelly Olto, oversees our accounting programs. So one of the things that are very clear in the U.S. is we don't put the same weight on experience and opportunities to practice as part of the credential, which is what I understand Chartered Accountants does. So that when we're graduating students, many of them have not had the same robust opportunities in terms of learning through experiences in public accounting. And I think that changes the way that the degree and the credential is perceived. So if you're hiring someone who's newly minted CPA and has graduated, they might have 150 credits, whether they have a master's degree or not. They may have very, very limited practice in terms of their experience. Whereas if you're coming from chartered accountants and you're an ACA, you are perceived to have a significant amount of awareness of what is being conducted in practice. And I think that brings great value. I would prefer the CPAs more aligned with chartered accountants worldwide. And that's one of the reasons why we're such great supporters of the institution. And I'm very pleased to have you all here. So I think it's an excellent question. I think on a whole, the United States is trying to catch up with Europe. We're only 10 years behind, so we're making great progress.
Thank you. Any other questions? Peter? Just one question.
I don't understand those remarks. Just a piece of history. The ACA, the forerunner of CAW, was founded by Angus McDowell, and I shared an office with him, literally 40 years ago. And during the 90s, there was a huge amount of work that we tried to do to merge the CPA and the CA into one much more homogeneous system. And it was a disaster. The difference between the training that a chartered accountant gets anywhere in the world is so much, I've got to be careful how I say this, it's so much better than the CPA qualification. And we've been on this for about 4 years before we said, look, this ain't going anywhere. And that's now 20 years ago. So I'm still a huge advocate for the quality, keeping the quality of the chartered accountant, globally at the top. It's incredibly important. And I've actually got a view that we've got a huge opportunity to make the chartered accountant job way bigger and more important for the modern world than we're sort of coasting in my view. Anyway, that's another subject. But that's a little bit of history.
Thank you, Peter. Any other questions? David Freeman.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the three of you for telling your stories. I found it captivating. We're all here for different reasons. Most people, I suspect, this was never planned to be the place you end up. But my question is about something called the imposter syndrome, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically something that professionals particularly suffer with, which is to have self-doubt in your capabilities and your knowledge, and you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing because you're just simply not qualified. And I was wondering, each of you told your story, but was there any point where you suffered from self-doubt, and what did you do about it?
So yes, is the answer, absolutely. I think at many points in my career, I'll take it back to being a chartered accountant, actually. That we are driven and taught appropriately that things have to be good, correct, proper, and the standards up here. And so then as you step into your career and you're starting to learn to do different things, I certainly felt that I had to have a mastery up here before I could say, oh, I could do that. So that certainly happened. I know when I became a CFO of a publicly traded company in the US, it's like, whoa, who put me in charge? And I think again, then you need to have good friends and colleagues around to trust yourself, and also be really open to saying, I know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, and I will figure it out. But I think that network of support you've got around yourself helps enormously. I think experience, which is another word for age, helps hugely as well. So I think a lot of that self-doubt that I had earlier in my career, you just have to do away with because you won't move on. But certainly, I've certainly experienced it. I've certainly then lent on others to help me through it. And it's not uncommon for anyone that's in this room or out there thinking, oh, should I be here? You absolutely should. And it's a case of stepping forward. Some of the greatest ways we learn is by making mistakes. And you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to do it the right way. Privately is much better than publicly, but having the ability and surround back to the point I'd also made about find your fit and your environment, to be in a position to make those mistakes is going to help take away from that imposter syndrome, to be feeling really comfortable and confident that you're really great at your job. And I'm sure every person in this room is really great at the job. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad you asked that question, because it's something that actually has been on my mind for the last few weeks. Is something that is especially pertinent for women in this industry, and even more so for women of color in this industry, is that pause, that should I be here, right? And I think addressing imposter syndromes requires a moment of vulnerability to acknowledge that it's there in the first place. And then a moment of pause to say, how do I counter the inner voice that's telling me I shouldn't be? So I'm going to use vulnerability and give you a perfect example. This morning I woke up and I said, I have to speak today, right? And writing a bio for a conference is a very interesting exercise, by the way, because you write all these wonderful things and then you go, oh God, is that me? And so I looked at the bio and the imposter syndrome started. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to go and speak. And he said, no, she is me, I am she. People want to hear what I have to say. And so it's that moment to pause and say, hold on, it's just a voice, it's a small voice, you don't have to listen to it. You have the qualifications, you have the experience, you have the perspectives that people want to hear. And so I think everyone, regardless of your tenure, your age, your experience, you're gonna have moments where you think, oh God, am I the person that should be in this room right now? And it's really about just pausing, slowing down, and saying yes. Yes to the opportunity, yes, I can do it, and no to the self-doubt.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks for the very insightful sharing. I just have one question. So, I think the consensus is that because of there is now a variety of other professions available, like computer science, data analytics, which is quote unquote more popular among the younger ones. So, what are your thoughts in terms of how do we, what is the value proposition of the accounting profession, and how do we, I guess, attract the younger ones into the profession?
I'll be brief on this answer because I actually think we've got some working sessions that are going to address exactly that. But I will draw your attention, yesterday one of the big four accounting firms said they were going to make $1 billion investment in bringing through the younger generation. And so I think part of what's happening, and I think this is a really good lunchtime discussion, part of what's happening, and I've talked to deans of accounting schools in Atlanta where I am, the wages aren't the same, that's a problem. I was told by someone we actually needed to raise our prices. I'm like, see how that goes. But I think there is a lot to do and counter in the value and what people are stepping out of college into, and the salary they see, and the investment they just made in a substantial cost of education, in particular in the US, and the salary's not there. That's actually one of the real challenges. I don't know if anyone else has got.
I think one of the really crucial value proposition aspects that is often forgotten with this qualification is, at least my experience has been training, is, you know, after your first year, you learn a little bit, and the second year you learn something new, but you have to go back and teach the next first year what to do, right? And to be able to explain that real time and provide them constructive feedback. So there's this built-in feedback loop that you don't necessarily get with all other professions. I think of all the computer science, the engineering, you come up, you get a job, and you're like, great, you know all of this, off you go. But what's unique about this qualification is it also puts you in a place to start learning how to manage a team before you even get in the door, right? So you're set up to know when to say yes. You're set up to know when to go to your manager. Is there anything else I can do? Or to see something and make that suggestion, which is slightly different than some of the other fields. So I think the beauty of this qualification is it's not just about giving you a certificate that says you are great at crunching numbers. It's also you are a well-rounded person who can go into any industry and do more than crunch the numbers, which is crucial, I think, in a world that's ever changing, ever evolving. I mean, a lot of the people I qualified with don't work in practice anymore. They're starting their own firms. They understand balance sheet, income statement, how a business works, so they can go and do their own thing. They can become entrepreneurs. Some of them became teachers, going back and teaching how to do that. And many became partners as well. So it places you in a different position that I think is unique compared to the other fields.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Yeah, it's just me. It's just me. Hi, so I'm not a chartered accountant, I'm just here. But I'm a person, as Declan just kind of said. So really what I wanted to ask is, how do you go about advocating for yourself with the senior management as you progress, you know, from the bottom up essentially? How do you make the case to show that you are worth more money or a promotion or whatever, but also how do you kind of shout about what you do without looking like you're bragging? Those are things that would interest me.
Yeah, I'm going to close this out.
Well, I gotta tell you, I very seldom mention that I'm a chartered accountant. I mentioned earlier, I don't even mention like my title, like partner title, whatever. To me, what the chartered accountant gives you is that foundation to build on. And after that, it's your experience, credentials, what you've done, how you lead people that really bring you forward. So I've never had a conversation, listen, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm worth more than this person, and therefore I need to be earning more. I've literally never in my career had that conversation. So to me, it's all about what the qualification means to you foundationally. And really after that, it's really what you do with it, right? So I don't do debits and credits. I've done debits and credits for, I don't know, 25 years probably, you know, or somewhere around about there. You know, I'm in business. I really am in, you know, so day to day, I'm looking at master data modeling. I'm looking at all these things at my clients, which is nothing to do with my base, but it gave me permission to understand how business operates, that I mentioned earlier, and from there, you know, you just take that to where you want to go. So, not to sure I'll answer your question directly, but
Thanks.
Okay, and with that, let's close our session. We've run a little bit over, but that's fine, we'll make it up. So, please thank our speakers.